Hello, welcome to the latest in our series of Focus Group Live. Tonight, we are going to be talking to a group from the Gillingham and Rainham constituency. This was a seat that the Conservatives won by around 30 points at the last election, so not a seat that you would expect to be particularly marginal in a sort of close election, but of course that is not where we are at the moment. And looking at MRP projections, it very much suggests that this is a seat which Labour are likely to gain in the election, assuming those projections are right. So what we'll be trying to dig into tonight, what are some of those reasons why this seat might be switching? Why have voters either made the decision already to switch from the Conservatives, or why have they moved into that undecided column? As with the previous in the series of focus group lives that we've been doing, the aim of this is to try and understand why people are voting the way that they are, to get a bit under the skin of it. It is not to conduct a voting intention poll. You wouldn't do that with the group of 8 or so people that we're going to be chatting to. And as I'm sure you'll know, there have been very many polls during this campaign. This is much more about getting under the skin. And indeed, the participants have been selected on the basis that they were Conservative voters and are now either planning on voting for Labour or are undecided, or at least were when we recruited them. Again, my job is not to act as a referee, a fact checker, or anything like that. It's simply to try and steer the discussion. So we cover a wide range of topics. So there may occasionally be things where you think, why didn't he correct that person? But the reason is that isn't my job to do that. At the end, we'll have a very quick wash up, just to touch on some of the themes that we've covered in this week's focus group live. And this is the penultimate, as I said, focus group live. We'll have a final focus group live, which will be next Wednesday. So look forward to that. What will happen now is I will switch over to go to the other room where the participants are, and we will then kick off the focus group. So if you just bear with us, the screen will go back to the holding screen. We'll now move over onto the stream, which will start, and then we'll begin our conversation. I will keep you, I promise, for no more than what time is it now? It'll be about an hour, and then I'll let you go and enjoy some of this very sunny evening. It's nice that we've finally been blessed with some warm weather after, I don't know what you felt, but the most miserable June in a while. So without further ado, we'll just do very lightning introductions so that I can get to know you, and then we'll dig into the discussion. As I say, the only 2 ground rules that I have are: 1, be honest. If you disagree with what someone says, that's fine. But also, if you agree with them, don't feel that you have to sort of bite your tongue or say, oh, they've already said it. It's interesting to hear it in your own words. And when you're not talking, if you just keep yourself on mute, that just means that we don't get too much background noise. The Zoom is amazing, but the number of dogs, babies, partners, housemates that we end up with in the background, which can sometimes be a little bit distracting. And I think that's everything by way of introductions from me. So I'm going to go to you, and it'd just be good to know who you are, what you do during the day. So if you work, what you do for work, or if you do something else to keep busy, what that is, and then what you had for lunch today. CJ, you've become very dark there. I can barely see you. There's a way of brightening that. That's a bit better. That might work. But I'm going to start with Emma. Oh, you're on mute, Emma. You were following the instructions too well.
Sorry, I'm here now. I'm Emma. I can't even remember what you said, what you asked us to ask for now. I had what did I have for lunch? Tuna roll for
Yeah,
lunch.
nice.
Um, what else did you want to
What do you
know?
do either for work?
Oh yeah, so I'm a IT technician, IT support manager technician, and I look after my two children.
Lovely. Very nice to meet you, Emma.
Thank you.
Let's go to Gemma.
Hello, I am a PA to a head teacher at a special needs primary school. My lunch was tuna as well, but with some crackers with it. And yeah, busy life with family. So I've got two kids and a husband in the Met Police, so busy life.
That sounds it. Very good. Andy.
Evening, everyone. My name's Andy. 42 years old, got three kids, 18, 15, and 11. And I work in finance. For lunch today, I was in London, so I had a chicken salad from Pret.
Very nice. I like that chicken salad. Richard.
Yeah, I'm an IT analyst for a corporate law firm in London. Family man with three children, pretty much the same age as Andy's. And for lunch, I think I just had some chicken skewers.
Very nice. Very good indeed. CJ.
Hello, everyone. I'm CJ, 26, and I work as an apprentice in optics. I had a full English breakfast for lunch today because I was feeling a bit festive.
That is very nice. I think that's what I'm most jealous of so far. Elizabeth.
Oh, hi, I'm Elizabeth. I'm 26 as well, and I work in medical sales. And I didn't have lunch.
You didn't have lunch? Oh, no. That's great. Nice to meet you, Elizabeth. And last but not least, Jason.
Hi. I am 40 years old. I work in recruitment. Two kids, 14 and 11, and I had pesto couscous for lunch today.
Very nice as well. Good selection of lunches there.
My internet has frozen.
Oh, can you hear me? Are you still there? Yeah, you're there. Great. Very good. Unfortunately, we're not going to be talking about lunch options in this discussion today. As you know, we're going to be talking about the election. I'm going to start off with a general open question. Anyone come in? What have you thought about the election campaign so far, if anything? What's kind of jumped out at you, or was it left you thinking?
It's a bit all over the place.
Yeah, go on. Just tell me a little bit about why, Emma.
I think that I don't think it's really hard to trust what anyone says. There's always backtrack. There's always someone doing something, saying something that's not right, or someone doing something. So, you know, at the moment where all these bits and pieces are coming out in the news, you just don't know who to trust. It's just all over the place. It's just a mess. These people are meant to be running our country, and they can't control their own personal life.
Yeah. Are there any particular examples? And then I'll move on of
what's in the news at the moment with the betting.
Okay. Yeah. Had other people heard about that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Any? Would other people have said similar, different? What would other people say?
I tend to agree with Emma. I think that the level of trust in any party at the moment is quite low. A lot of people I've spoken to just don't know who to vote for. And yeah, the integrity of a few members comes into question, especially with the betting on the date of the election that's in the news at the moment.
Yeah. Others similar, different? Richard and then CJ?
Yeah, I think There's been like the two high-profile debates on TV. I think in like the hour or 2 hours they're on, they're going over sort of very similar ground. It's a little bit frustrating. So if you didn't see the first one, saw the second one, you haven't really missed much, or vice versa. Same sort of questions from the audience and same replies. So that's a little bit frustrating. I think the betting's been thrown in as a bit of a curveball, really. I mean, it's not like, although it's serious, we're not talking thousands and thousands of pounds have been won or lost.
Yeah.
I know it's the integrity, yeah, I get that. But I think that's kind of been clouding some of the other issues.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's getting too much airtime?
Taking over a little bit, yeah, rather than focusing on the manifestos.
Yeah. Fine. CJ, were you going to come in? And I'll go to Elizabeth.
Yeah, I was going to say, to be totally upfront and transparent with you all, I kind of feel this election has become a bit of a sort of 2014 typical Facebook smear tactic, is what it feels like. It's basically just pointing fingers of who's to blame for what's not happened.
Mhm.
And I think the older I get, the more I sort of realise that fundamentally, like, it just can't keep happening. It's basically just pointing fingers as to who's done what and who's not done what, and it's almost like playground tactics of he said, she said. It's becoming a bit of a farce, if you ask me.
Yeah, a farce. Okay, so some fairly similar themes so far. Elizabeth, what would you say?
Probably very similar to the other guys. Like, it's literally like playing cat and mouse.
Yeah. A mouse.
Like nothing's like simple these days.
Nothing simple. Yeah. Jason?
I agree. I think it was Richard who said so, around the betting element being less of a real tangible issue at the moment. But if I look at the whole campaign so far, that there's not really much in there to separate the main two parties. Looking at reform, you can promise everything you want under the sun, but it doesn't matter if you're not going to get in. And it's the whole piece around delivering when you're in. Manifestos don't really mean much if you don't have to follow through on them. And that's the same for all the parties, to be honest.
Yeah. And last but not least on this one, Gemma.
Yeah, I was just saying, I mean, I kind of agree with a lot of what's being said. To be honest, I think the betting stuff is kind of more probably like the press trying to make a bigger thing of it than anything else. But because they know that the public has got a lack of trust in what is being said, and also it just does feel like they're just, as I say, yeah, it's the schoolboy bullying almost sort of thing. Just you don't really know what each party is actually offering, because they're just trying to tell you what the other one isn't going to do, rather than giving the actual promise and hope of what they might bring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they're fairly consistent across the group. How many of you watched last night's debate? No? And seen clips? You?
Nope.
Little bits. Okay.
Little bits and pieces, sort of flicked over from the football a few times, and then I kind of got bored and went back.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I was going to say my boys won and we watched the football and not that.
Yeah, because purely the reason, Luke, is it was covering a lot of old grounds.
Mm-hmm.
And there was I think there was a protest outside, and that was really winding me up a little because I couldn't really hear, couldn't concentrate. But yeah, a lot of the old ground was sort of covered, so yeah, I didn't really see much point in continuing. Listened to a couple of questions, but
not very new.
No.
Sorry. I didn't watch it this time, either last night or the previous one, but it's the first election campaign that I haven't watched pretty much everything that's gone on. And I think it's just a real lack of engagement. I just don't feel engaged at the moment, so I haven't really caught up with any of it.
Yeah. Engaged. Are others similar? Do you feel sort of less engaged this time, more engaged?
I think. Oh, you go, Emma. Go on.
Yeah, Emma, you go, and then Andy.
For me, it's less.
Yeah.
I'm definitely less engaged because I don't know who I want to vote for.
Mhm.
I'm kind of, and I should be probably more into it to try and work out who I want to vote for, but I just can't get into it.
Mhm.
And I just have no idea who's actually really offering what, to be honest. It'd be so much easier if they could if you just had an outline of everything that each party was offering, and then what they were going to do, what they'd like to do in an ideal world, and just have it listed out, and that would make life a lot easier.
Yeah, sounds quite sensible. Andy.
Yeah, thanks. I think my level of engagement is less this time round. With regards to the debates, I think when they first came in, was it the last election or the one before? It was a novelty thing where we could. I think it came over from America because they do it a lot over there, and it was good. But now, I didn't watch last night's one at all. I think going back to the level of trust and engagement, they say one thing but not necessarily follow through on it. And it's whilst you've got the Reform Party, which is a new party, I would like to see another party come in, like just a normal, if you like, a normal person's party to really shake it up and to. But I appreciate that's difficult in the years of establishment that Labour and Conservatives have got. So for me, it's just, I think Richard said it, it's the same old thing going over and over again, the same points. And I think with a lot of those debates, it's a lot of mudslinging, and it can get quite personal. The relatability to certain members of those parties is, do they actually, do they know what's going on within the UK?
So they don't, a bit out of touch, is that?
Oh, I would say so, yeah.
I would say about the Reform Party. I think what puts me off a little bit about that is when, without getting too deep into it, like when Farage sort of headed the Brexit votes, and when Brexit actually happened, a lot of the people that actually went for it and wanted it, they kind of jumped ship when they had to implement anything. So it's almost that'll be the same thing that happens in the Reform Party. If that got in, it invalidates anything being implemented later on.
This is interesting.
That's something I've just kind of, it's probably not everyone sort of jumped ship, but they kind of left Theresa May with something she didn't want, but it's what the country wanted. But the people that were pushing it didn't really help when it actually happened.
Since a few people now have mentioned reform and Nigel Farage, we'll talk a bit about the party leaders, and then we'll move on to some of the policies. What you've heard from Richard. What do other people think about Nigel Farage and Reform UK based on what you know, what you've heard? Gemma?
I'd say personally, it's I feel he's quite dangerous. It's kind of how he comes across, the way that he is. And I think, when it was at the previous election, I voted Conservative because I didn't want him as the Labour leader. And it's like now it was quite, but I didn't want Boris Johnson either. So it was a bit kind of like feeling torn at that point, because it's like, which is the best of the worst? And I do feel that now is the same, but you've also now got, this reform element with Nigel Farage now on that kind of makes you think, well, actually, I don't want him either. So I think it's then making people sway slightly differently because of that fear.
That's interesting. What do other people think? Emma?
I quite like Gemma's saying he's dangerous. I think the same. I think he's power hungry, personally. I think he seems to jump on board when he can get where the middle of the election he seems to be around, then he disappears again, and then it gets votes and he's in the papers and he's in the telly, then he disappears. You don't hear from him. He's doing random stuff, and then sort of election or something's coming up where he can can get votes again, and there he appears again. Just find him a bit. He just jumps in when he's getting votes and when it matters. But he's not. He just disappears and shies off. It's a bit weird.
What about others? Anyone think differently about Nigel Farage or think similar? Elizabeth, you're shaking your head. I might come to you and then CJ.
Oh,
I think with Farage, sorry.
Why don't you carry on, CJ, and then we'll go to Elizabeth.
I think with Farage, he's quite in over his head. He obviously pro-Brexiteer as such, but as someone said mentioned earlier, as soon as it sort of Brexit went into place, he, for the want of better words, jumped ship. I think he's all talk and hasn't got the gaunt to sort of show it off as such.
Mm-hmm.
He's a typical topper, I guess you could say.
Elizabeth?
Wherever you've got, he's got a better idea, but he can't execute it.
So that's interesting. Elizabeth, I'll bring you back in now. You there, Elizabeth?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. So I was just going to say like the same as others, really. Personally, I didn't even know like Nigel was part of like the whole election personally, but like from hearing what I heard on the news, like it was just about the same as the others. He's power trip happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Similar. Anyone else? Jason, did you want to come in? No.
Be the same as everyone else, to be honest. I mean, the only thing that kind of slightly separates it, again, like everyone else said, I think he believes what he's saying. I just don't think he's able to follow it through. And I think a big part of the election push coming now, partway through the election campaign, probably has a lot lined up. The fact that he's hoping Trump will get back in and he can have a nice little influence with the big man over there as well.
Yeah. Sense. Brill. Well, should we move on? Should we move on to another personality, or person in the election? It's we'll talk about the two main party leaders now. Let's start with Rishi Sunak. What do people think of Rishi Sunak? How has he been as a prime minister? How has his election campaign gone? What do people think?
I'd probably say that. Yeah,
you start, CJ, and then I'll bring in Jason.
I think it could have gone better for him. I think what the public need to understand in general, and by means this is not me being pro-conservative or anything like that. It's mainly separating the person from the party is what the people need to focus on. Like as a person, does the public like him? Not really. As a party leader, do we have to respect him? Again, that's sort of subject to individuality. But I just can't see how someone who's almost put as little effort as himself has managed to be the most powerful person in the country.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
He was selected, not elected.
Interesting. Selected, not elected. Yeah. Jason, what do you think? And then I'll bring in Andy.
I haven't got a problem with Rishi Sunak per se. I guess he, looking over the last 15 months or whatever it's been, I don't think he's done a bad job. I think he inherited a real mess from Boris Johnson and has probably done his best to get that up straight. I don't necessarily see myself voting for him. I don't necessarily engage with him. He seems like a all right guy. Not that it really matters in the grand scheme of things, but I don't think he's done anything too bad. But in the 18 months, I haven't seen much of an impact. And to a certain extent, unfortunately for him, he's going to get punished, I think, for 14 years of conservatism that's left us where we are in the country.
He's sort of carrying the can a bit. Andy?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Jason. What he inherited, was it after? Did he come in after Theresa May? I can't remember. There's been a few. So yeah, I think it goes back to that relatable issue. He's a man of significant wealth. His wife's a woman of significant wealth, and I preferred him as a chancellor in during COVID as opposed to a prime minister. I just think he doesn't come across as that relatable. But you know, it's a really difficult one because I don't think any of them are that relatable. To be honest, any of the leaders. I mean, just going back to Farage, he'll stand on the news and stand there and drink a pint of ale, and he's the working man, if you like. But I think in Brexit, was it the bus that the Brexit bus that had, I don't know, a figure of 30 million more for the NHS every week, and then as soon as Brexit happened, they said, "Oh well, we can't do that. That was just us trying to win it." So things like that stick in people's memories, I think.
Yeah. Gemma, were you going to comment on?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think like he's kind of just shot himself in the foot, obviously, quite a few times during the campaign. Obviously, people with the D-Day thing, with him coming back early, those who were kind of wavering a bit, that will have gone down really badly. And I think he's just kind of done, and obviously his ridiculous Sky TV poverty comment is just it's just one of those things that makes you just kind of think he doesn't really know what he's talking about. But yes, he did inherit a ridiculous, after obviously everything the country's gone through, and then obviously Liz Truss coming in as the one who really messed it up even further. I didn't have too much of an issue with him as a prime minister, but I think everyone has known that as soon as a general election was called, everyone just wants change. We're fed up with everything going how it is, all of our costs of living having gone up, and all of the impact that has. So I don't think he has ever stood a chance, no matter how relatable or how good he was doing.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Emma, were you coming in there?
Yes, all I was going to say was I feel like he was a bit of a yes man, sort of brought in to calm the waters, which I think he's may or may not done. I think the country was in a mess when he started, but I just think he's tried to keep things a bit quiet, try not to make too much drama. Sort of what Boris came in and done and others. And I feel that he sort of maybe has calmed things a little bit, but I think Conservatives are in just such a mess that I think he would have had to do he had a massive job to do to try and sort that out. And I think he's just the yes man that's come in just to calm it down and do what he's told.
Fair enough. Anyone else on Sunak before we move on?
Yeah, I'd have said I think they keep going back because he kind of took over after the pandemic, and as you say, I do prefer someone that's actually closer to the financial side, coming from a chancellor background, because the alternatives weren't great. So and then obviously also his opposition leaders aren't great either. So it's like the best of a bad bunch almost. Not quite the same as the States, but I'm kind of looking sort of what he's going to bring selfishly, like financially to me, rather than sort of morally what I'm thinking. That's how I've got now. I think it's an age thing.
Yeah, no, it's totally fair. So more, I guess, tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth, is sort of, you look at him as a politician, it's like, what is he going to deliver for me and my family?
Pretty much, yeah, because when you put faith in what people are going to do, I mean, I know we've got people that work in NHS on the call and stuff like that, and I can't comment on how bad it's been for them, but I've always worked in obviously the financial private sector, so what he's going to bring to the table to me for all the years I've been working. So I didn't want that taken away and brought to a level playing ground. So I think Richie kind of, although he's probably a little bit out of touch with Middle England, if you like, he's got his finger on the pulse for the financial side. I think he comes across a little bit better when in, but all the leaders you can't really trust what they say, but I think he comes across a little bit more convincing. But that's my own opinion.
More convincing.
Sorry, I think to give it a bit of balance, he pledged to get inflation down to what it is now, and he has. So fair play for that. And like Richard says, he's a very financial guy. So yeah, if he can sort the country's finances out, then yeah, I'm all for that.
Yeah. What about his opposite number? What about Keir Starmer? Maybe I'll start with you, Andy.
I think he's a huge improvement on Corbyn. I don't think Labour were ever going to win all the time Jeremy Corbyn was in charge. I think he's in a good position almost by default because of the way the country is, as opposed to him being a good leader for the Labour Party, if that makes sense. So whilst Rishi Sunak inherited a mess, he's inherited a good situation, I think, which will probably swing very favourably for him on July the 4th.
Makes sense. Emma?
I think he's more relatable. I think he can be more relatable. I find it difficult to work out what he actually wants for the country and what he's going to do. I find that difficult. Even watching him in the debates and stuff, I still couldn't really pinpoint what he is going to achieve. I do struggle with that, but he comes across quite well. It'd just be more ideal to understand what he's planning to achieve, really.
Elizabeth, you still there? I can only see a ceiling now, so I don't know. Oh, you're on mute, Elizabeth.
Oh, hello.
Hi. Oh, Elizabeth, I've lost you. That didn't really work, did it? Let's go to someone else. Gemma, what do you think of Keir Starmer?
I think I agree pretty much with what Andy and Emma are both saying. I think, yes, definitely he is a leader that is in a party at it's the right time, not necessarily as someone who everyone's going, yes, we want him leading us, because you don't know what he's offering, because he isn't really saying a lot. But it is, as I say, everyone kind of we just want a change. And I get that it could eventually come through Sunak, but he's just, Starmer is there at the right point and is going to probably benefit from that very much so.
Jason?
Similar again. I guess the first impressions I had of Keir Starmer was probably during the pandemic. And one thing I really liked actually was when the whole country and the whole world was falling apart and they were putting things in place. At that time, he wasn't all about playing party politics. It was, put the country first, and I really appreciated it at the time. Obviously, that quickly changed. It now is very much tit for tat and party politics between them all. Seems like a good enough guy. Don't necessarily think he's going to make a huge difference, but he will gain in the same way David Cameron gained, after Brown for a long time, I think.
Yeah. So again, sort of benefiting from the Tory mistakes. CJ?
As mentioned earlier, I can't remember who it was, so I do apologise, but we may have somebody who works under the NHS in here. What I'm looking forward to is, should Labour take the majority vote, is he sort of stood to pledge up and sort of stand up for the NHS, obviously wanting more doctors and nurses, more sort of just more help or more funding for the NHS, because fundamentally those that work in sort of like the private sectors. Take Rishi Sunak as an example. I can't exactly picture him popping down to the local A&E. Do you know what I mean? I can't see him getting an appointment with GP. It's more sort of catering your pledges to the relatable community, basically. Keir Starmer was in my area probably, I think, later half of last year, as I want to say, just walking around in a Costa in the area. Like you won't really see that. He's just certainly appealing to the slightly more working class, and he's certainly picking his areas of voters quite well, especially in sort of the area that we're in currently. I mean, my local council has just been Conservative for the last God knows how many years, has recently become a Labour council now. So he's playing the game very, very well, and he's certainly appealing to more supporters in my area. Absolutely.
Yeah. Richard.
All right. Yeah, I kind of agree with CJ. I think he's targeting his audience very cleverly, and then he has been there by default. And I think he's a massive improvement on Corbyn, but I'm hoping that he's not going to put everyone on the same level playing ground.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of has targeted the NHS, which obviously needs an overhaul, but it's promising this stuff that's not. It's not achievable. There's not anything tangible there. There's a lot of really good ideas and everyone agrees with it, but how are you going to get there? And he can't ever deliver that. It seems too flaky. He can't deliver what he said he's going to deliver and how he's going to do it. But the ideas are there. The ideas are like sort of everyone wants change. Great. But how are we going to get that change? And I don't think it's sort of very convincing at times. I'm still a little bit on the fence.
Yeah. And when you talk about, a level playing field, are you particularly sort of thinking about tax there, or?
Yeah, mainly, yeah, tax thing, and then the benefits culture type thing, and I think the tax mainly, and then like the pensions as well. The fact he's going to take away the 25% when you get your personal pension, the 25% tax free. That's going to go eventually, and then people have worked, all their lives. And they've contributed to their own savings as such. So things like that kind of take from not going on really well if we don't get, but it's just a perception I've got.
Yeah.
Not quite as radical as Corbyn, but yeah, something I'm still undecided.
Yeah, but we'll come back and talk about tax and maybe pensions as well. But I just want to see, Elizabeth, you back? You were sort of breaking up before.
Yeah, I don't have anything really to say on this one. I don't really know what to say on this one.
No real opinions of Keir Starmer?
Not really, no. He's good for the working class, but that's about it.
Yeah, well, no, that's good enough opinion. Good for the working class. Okay, let's move off the personalities and on to some of the policies and areas. When it comes to the election, what are the most important issues that you'll be voting on, and why? What are the most important things facing you, the country, your family that you'll be? And then again, anyone come in and kick us off here.
Well, straight away the 2% tax, another 2% off the national insurance if whoever pays national insurance.
Yeah.
Straight away, that's going to be obviously giving people more money.
Yeah. But again, tax for you, Jason, and then Gemma.
Some high level for me, really. Cost of living needs to be brought back to a sustainable level. It affects everything. Not just what you're paying out to the supermarkets, to the energy bills, to getting through life, but actually getting to a position where we can enjoy things again. Those on lower earnings can enjoy it as much as, to a certain extent, as much as people who are in money at the moment. But yeah, being able to afford the basics as a
Yeah. And if you don't mind me asking, Jason, has it sort of affected you, the cost of living? Have you found it particularly?
I have, but not in a way that's really been problematic. So my salary has probably over the last couple of years doubled. So I'm quite fortunate in that effect. But I look back and I look at my monthly outgoings and I look how much I've got left in my account at the end of the month, and it's gone. And I find myself in a really lucky position, but I can't do the things I want to do to enjoy life, and I can't even imagine, if I was where I was a couple of years back. How people are, and they are scraping by, but it's not much fun at the moment. It must be horrible if you're really, really on the breadline, and thankfully I'm not quite there.
Yeah. So, cost of living. We had national.
Yeah, sorry, Luke. Sorry, Luke. I didn't realise that it was my comment, the 2%. It just sounded really shallow, to be honest. I was just picking something out of there that would be straight away a difference.
Yeah,
would be my overall picture of morally how I want the country to go and everyone's life to go. Like, just I misunderstood the question. Sorry.
No. Honestly, you can go big or you can go specific. There is no. I promise you, there's no right or wrong answer. So, and again, open to everyone. You can either pick a specific policy or you can talk about a bigger thing, and then we'll dig into the specific. Gemma, you were going to come in.
Yeah, I'm very much the same. Cost of living has got to be one of the key things to consider.
I think I'm fairly similar, obviously, to Jason's position. Actually, I'd managed to secure a different job, which had given me some more money just before things kicked off. And my husband had a promotion at work. So I don't like to think where we would be if we hadn't had that. And I also think, like, obviously the NHS side of stuff does need to be considered because it is becoming quite a broken system almost. And I'm really pro NHS and I want to make sure that stays. And obviously I work in the public sector, as does my husband. So I think it's very important to ensure our security for that going forwards. And as well, having teenage sons, you want to know that they're able to actually afford things as they grow older. That they will be able to buy their own house and this sort of thing. And you do feel at the moment how everything's gone up, how is that even slightly a possibility for them? So you need to have things kind of come back and be able to have more control.
More control there. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Andy and then Emma.
Yeah, I think it's just trying to make the UK a better place to live, on the wider scale. You look at the state of the roads, there's a lot of roads are in a bad condition with potholes, for example. You can't get a dentist appointment, you can't get a doctor's appointment. Everything's expensive, just the whole picture. And I think, going back to what Gemma said as well about our kids affording houses, I was quite fortunate. I got my first house when I was 21 and when Labour were in charge, and there were 95% mortgages. Whereas now, I think you need a 30% mortgage, and you're like, how are the next generation ever going to be able to afford to get on the property ladder? And I think it needs whoever's going to come in, or if Conservatives stay in, to sort of look at that and speak to the banks and say, look, we need to get this housing market moving again, and how are we going to get all of these kids or these young adults on the property ladder?
Yeah. Housing again, and sort of fixing lots of things, I think, came out of that as well. Emma.
Yeah, so same as what everyone else is. Cost of living is horrendous. Food. I've got young children, very young children, and well, if prices carry on the way they're going, they're not even going to afford a blooming loaf of bread, let alone a house. Prices are just insane. Food is just insane. A weekly shop, for, a couple of bags is close to 100 quid for, and you're not even getting a week's food out of that for a family of 4. So yeah, just cost of living, childcare as well. Support with childcare has in a way got slightly better. The help from one, that sort of thing, that there it is sort of there, but the infrastructure's not there. The nurseries that are available, the after school availability for after schools. They want everyone to get back to work, which is great. But the infrastructure isn't there. It's hard to find people to look after your children. No work, no job is 9 o'clock till 3 o'clock. You can't get a job. No one wants you if you want 9 till 3. And that would be lovely. I find a job 9 to 3 would be amazing, but it's not possible. That sort of thing. Doctors are horrendous at the moment. I mean, I don't know how everything else has to go back after COVID, but doctors have done their own thing. Not being able to get a doctor's appointment, not being able to get your call answered, not being able to get basic needs, dentist, is just crazy. So all those things need to be resolved.
Yeah. So NHS there in particular, sort of doctors and GPs, childcare, and cost of living particularly for you. CJ, what will be on your list of top issues?
Sorry, I'm trying to unmute. I don't know if it's come through yet or not.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
There we go. Hello, sorry. So, yeah, the cost of living crisis itself, I'll be honest with you, I think no matter who gets in charge, I'd argue the state of the economy is going to be more or less the exact same. I mean, it was mentioned earlier that Rishi Sunak managed to bring sort of his pledge for inflation. Was it 2.3%? I think is what he ended up with anyway, compared to the no, it's 4.2 compared to what the Bank of England tried to promise at 2.3. But we talk about funding and a cost of living crisis. If we look at Google as an example, the owners of Google, Alphabet, they in 2021 only paid, I think, what, 750 million out of the 2.6 billion, I think, that was estimated just operating in the UK. If we can't hold companies accountable for operating in the UK, like the money that could go into the infrastructure and actually help build the economy for the better, what could 2.8 billion go towards? That's the question. I mean, I've got a few suggestions, but that's not the topic up for debate. It just doesn't. I just don't understand how we got people fighting for food almost. People in food banks. There's a food bank up by me. The queues is horrendous. I mean, fortunately, I'm fortunate enough to not go to a food bank, and I feel genuinely sorry for those that do have to visit a food bank. It's demoralising, and at times it is your last hope. We've got the people that operate their companies in the UK not paying the amount of tax they're supposed to be paying. If they don't do it, why should we?
Yeah.
I'm actually on the same page with you, actually, there. Something I forgot to mention earlier on around, to be fair, everything everyone's saying here is exactly aligned with what I'm thinking. But the argument always gets put forward when people talk about closing the tax loopholes for these big companies is if we don't, if we close these loopholes, they'll go elsewhere. But my counter to that is if they're not paying it here, what benefit are they offering? They're offering jobs out to people, but if they're not paying the taxes, let them go. Let them go. But we need to start closing those because we need more coming in and people and companies that contribute.
Those loopholes. And Elizabeth, your top issues?
Mine are pretty much the same as everybody else. The whole cost of living. Like me, for myself, I go month to month. Can't even afford some days to fill my fridge because the cost now is way too expensive.
Yeah. Cost of living a constant.
I don't really have anything else on that.
No, that's fair. So cost of living a fairly consistent theme, and to Richard's point, I mean, do you think that tax cuts are a good way of sort of helping with that and easing the pressure? You're nodding, Jason, so I'll go to you, and then maybe Andy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do. I think whether it's about tax cuts per se or increasing the threshold for kind of or the bans more generally, I think there's definitely work to be done with tax. That's one part, and I think that needs to happen in conjunction with pulling everything else in because there's no point us paying less tax, which means less money going into the pot to fix things if things aren't being resolved outside. Because if anything, I'd instantly be open for more tax. But the idea of paying less tax sounds very, very good to me, especially with everything going on.
Andy, and then Richard. Oh, Andy's gone. lost Andy. Oh, he's there.
Sorry, back again now. Yeah, I think yeah, everybody wants more money in their pocket at the end of the month. I don't think that's up for debate. So yeah, tax cuts are a good hook to try and get everyone on. But I agree with what Jason said. If we're paying less tax, unless that shortfall is going to come from somewhere else, then are we the ones that are going to be suffering more with less services? If anything, if a party was to be honest and go, look, I'm going to put up taxes by X amount, but everything will be good and everything, you won't wait more than a week for a doctor's appointment or a week for a dentist appointment, and we're going to sort all the schools out and we're going to sort the roads out, then I think a lot of people go, yeah, do you know what? If you are actually going to do that, then that's fine. But don't lessen the tax and then lessen the services even more.
So you'd rather have someone that came in and said, look, I'm going to put taxes up, and I'm going to do, but in exchange, you'll get this, this, and this.
Just a bit of honesty.
Yeah. Okay. That's a bit of a debate here. Gemma, where do you come down on that?
I think we definitely do need the honesty as to what is going to happen. Because I do get that our taxes do pay for obviously vital services. And if you know that it is going to actually pay and you're going to get the service, I would agree that yes, I wouldn't mind paying a little bit more taxes, but also that would be in line of if the other cost of living stuff is coming down, because if your mortgage payments and things were not coming down, the idea of paying more taxes is horrifying, because where's that money going to come from? So I think it's that bit of a kind of thing. If you know that other costs are going to come down and food costs are going to come down, I don't think anyone would mind going, yeah, okay, we'll pay a bit more to make sure we can get to the doctors and the dentist and we can get everything like this. But I don't think that you wouldn't get that balance, would you? So
what about others on this?
I'd say I'm not going to open up a can of worms, but I think immigration is linked a little bit to some of the services that are lacking. But I think that they are trying to control it. But I think that needs looking at, like the vetting definitely needs looking at, because this country definitely needs immigration for some services. But some of the services we're lacking, I think it is linked to some of the immigration policies that we've got in place. And it creates a shortage of things like housing, public services, schools. There's not enough to actually provide, that sort of dentist waiting list, doctors waiting list, and stuff like that. Affordable housing. It can't. I think it's linked. But that's what I do want to see. I do want to see a clearer policy on immigration. It has been swept under the carpet quite a bit. A lot of empty words. But we do need it. We do need immigration just for something, for doctors. There's a lot of things that jobs in this country, people will not do. In the hospitality industry, you go somewhere on a UK break, they're short staffed because since Brexit, whatever, they've gone to whatever the country that, sort of another EU country. And we're not getting the service.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bit of a mess. So I think that policy is kind of it all stems from that in a way.
And would others say immigration was up there on the list of concerns, or something that they worry about putting pressure on services, or not so much?
I'd say so, yeah, because I think it is quite evident that it does. And there does need to be, some clearer sort of guidelines, but you need all level of people that are coming in under the immigration policies, but you don't need, it's people who are coming in and they are using our system, they are using our benefits, and taking money but not actually contributing anything. And it does need to be looked into, like the gangs that are bringing them over and the level of extortion that is happening there. I do know stuff from it through having a husband who works in police. You got a bit of an understanding of, I think you only see a small area of it on the news as to kind of how these gangs work, and they're the ones fleecing our system. So if you had a better immigration system so that people could come over fairly, they wouldn't be falling for these gangs and coming over and then being exploited in that way. So
yeah, makes sense. What do others think, Emma?
Yeah, immigration. I don't know. I struggle with immigration because I kind of get why people want to come over and get out the countries that they don't want to be in. You'd do anything for your family. If they was in a country that wasn't safe, I would 100% get my kids out if it wasn't as much as possible. I mean, I wouldn't stick them on a boat crossing the ocean, but I would try my hardest to get them out if the country wasn't safe. So I kind of get why people are coming over, but as a country, we do need to do something in what we do once they're over here, the best way to deal with it. Gemma said a fair way. I agree with Gemma, a fair way of people coming over so that they don't have to get boats over. And it is easier for people to come over and start a new life without having to cross the channel to get in.
Anyone else on this?
I guess the immigration thing for me is somewhat mixed. I mean, personally, I think the illegal immigration, start with the illegal immigration side, is probably a little bit overplayed, maybe in the media. I mean, we're talking, I don't know what the numbers are now. I think about 50,000 illegal immigrants come over last year. I might be wrong with that number, but I've got a feeling it's about 50,000 legal immigrants, which is a big number. It's about 0.5% of the UK population. I don't necessarily think it has quite as big as an impact as everything else when we're looking at other types of immigration, which we do need for skilled workers coming in. I think linking to immigration, the whole Rwanda scheme is the biggest farce I've ever heard in my entire life. The cost that's putting in, the number of people they're talking about taking out, the lack of guarantees for it, it's just ridiculous. And I think in my mind, it's pushing to a certain character trait in certain people that think that the world would be better if we didn't have immigration. It's an issue for me for good and bad reasons, but less of an issue than some of the other.
Yeah. Anyone else on immigration? No.
Immigration obviously has its perks when we think about it. Like obviously, we've got a lot of doctors that aren't British nationals, which is absolutely fine. But when we speak about immigration, we spoke about obviously legal immigration. I used to work with the Hummingbird Project in Brighton, and what we did is we sort of helped the refugees that were coming over from their war-torn countries at the time. But when doing interviews with these said people, we're getting people that come from places like Albania. Albania have not had a war since what, the 1700s? What are they seeking asylum for? I personally say I'd love to be educated, but I just don't understand the refugee aspect of it when fundamentally there's no fear of life as such. There's no fear of death. Sorry.
Yeah. Is there a problem with CJ? Do you think, or is it the system we've got in place that doesn't process them in a reasonable amount of time? You know, if we're talking about economic migrants, like I think Emma said earlier on, and it's a different situation. Emma's 100% right. If you're coming from a war-torn country, you do absolutely anything, including probably jumping in the boat with your kids if it's a better alternative than staying there. But if you know that your life is going to be better elsewhere, I'd try to do it, to be fair. I don't know if I get in a boat. But is the problem not with the people that are coming over, but the government's lack of ability to resolve the claims in a reasonable time frame, sending back if there's no danger to life issues?
So you're more or less spot on. It's maintaining that European sort of friendliness that we have with obviously other countries, obviously that part of the EU and what have you. Like we should be working, say, like despite European Union status at the moment, we still need to work along with these countries. Like the relations with France need to be better. I mean, we got. I was watching a documentary the other week on the people sort of breaking into lorries and truck drivers, grassing them up on the ports of Calais. Like there's almost no communication with our government as it stands at the moment with the French government. It's almost like we're becoming, to an extent, I don't want to say overcrowded, I certainly wouldn't say so, but I think resources are very much finite in especially my community, the community I'm part of. There's just not a lot going, and with obviously the population in the last 50, 60 years has increased significantly. I think it's between 17 and 38% or something like that. We've only got a finite amount of resources. And where I'm a firm believer in everyone being welcome to the country, as long as we want to contribute. But then again, on the other hand, you could argue those that don't want to contribute towards society, whether they be British nationals or not, perhaps they need to go. We start pulling together a collective community as opposed to sort of singling out people of their place of origin as such, which is a bit of a catch-22, I know. But I mean, yeah.
That's an interesting point there. I want to. We've only got 5 or so minutes left, and there's just a couple of other things that I just want to test. One of the things that the Conservatives have warned is that if people don't go out and vote for them, there is a risk that Labour ends up with what has been called a supermajority. Have any of you heard that? A few of you. And do you think that's a concern? Is that something, this idea that Labour's majority might be too big, or there might not be a big enough position to put a check on them? Is that something that worries you, or not really? Do you think it's likely to happen? Will it influence people? Gemma, maybe, and then Jason.
Yeah, because I think you want to kind of obviously have a balanced government that are going to be able to, work together and support and kind of argue from both sides, because that's an important part kind of in life. So I can understand the fear of kind of them having that supermajority, because then they may be able to force things through that perhaps otherwise may have been open to a greater discussion. But I'm not sure it's going to go any other way, other than obviously the Reform Party potentially kind of taking up that second spot. And then obviously that's also concerning as well. So,
yeah. Jason, is it something that worries you? And then Andy, and then Richard.
It doesn't necessarily worry me, but it might be down to a little bit of naivety, to be honest. I think, I don't know how many times in the last 50 years a government's had more than the 50% majority, but I know Boris Johnson was pretty close to 50% back in 2019. And I don't really understand the difference if you've got a 75% or a 50%. The parties and stick to it.
Okay, yeah. Maybe it's just Andy, and then Richard.
It doesn't concern me. I think it was Gemma said about having a balance, which is important. I think maybe it could be a tactic by Conservatives to say, look, vote for us instead of voting for Reform, because if you don't vote for us, you won't have a balance in the House of Commons. So it could be a ploy by them to say, look, if you're not going to, if you were thinking of not voting for us, this is the alternative, and it could be a tactic that way.
Yeah, an election tactic more than a real threat.
Yeah.
Okay, Richard.
I haven't really thought about it, but I think like back in the day, you used to have obviously it was Labour or Conservative, then you had a load of other parties, which seen as like wasted votes. I think some people now have gone to that point where there's no point in the wasted vote, so not a vote at all.
Do you think turnout might be quite low?
What do you mean by turnout?
So people, do you think fewer people than normal might vote at this election?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, people that haven't got a trust in anything.
Yeah.
Whereas before, you had a Lib Dem, Green Party. I think that's diminished a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
From what I've heard.
Yeah. Emma, is it something that worries you?
No, I wouldn't say it concerns me. I think it will probably go that way.
Okay.
Personally, I think it will go that way, but I wouldn't say it overly concerns me.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So, but not really much concern on that one, I think it's fair to say. Yeah. Okay. Final question, and then I'll let you go. And I'm going to do everyone on this. Let's imagine it is the 5th of July, so it's the day after the election, and the new Prime Minister or existing Prime Minister, although you all seem to have indicated you think it's going to go a certain way. But the new Prime Minister, whoever they are, rings you up and says, what's one bit of advice you would give me for my term in office? So just a sentence. What would that sentence of advice be? And I'll just go around everyone and then you can go. And I'm going to start with CJ.
I'd probably want the NHS sorted out first.
Yeah.
Because it's just the way everything's going. People aren't well. Obviously, COVID, thankfully, has died down a little bit, but I think we're still sort of reaping the disadvantages of that standstill, I think. And people are still waiting for referrals for 5 years. I'm on currently year 9 of waiting for an autism and ADHD referral. I mean, granted, that was all before COVID and everything, but fundamentally, it makes no logical sense. The NHS need the extra funding. They need to help support the communities. Otherwise, we can't function, and we become almost like a revolution as such.
Yeah. Focus on the NHS would be yours. Andy, what would your one sentence of advice be?
Don't mess it up.
That's very to the point.
Yeah, no, I would say use your power wisely and don't lose touch with the little people.
Yeah, balance it and don't lose touch. Very good advice. Elizabeth?
Same again. Most people's probably mine is the NHS, because that is one thing that is failing.
Yeah.
There's not enough help for the NHS, and everywhere, including most hospitals, are too understaffed.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing would be just the NHS.
The NHS would be your advice too. Yeah. Richard?
Prioritise our country.
Mm-hmm. Prioritise our country. Good. Jason? No, you're on mute, Jason. Jason, you're muted.
Sorry, is that working now?
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Under promise and over deliver. Follow through on everything you said you're going to do, because the country's going to be rough for the next 5 years. Whatever happens, get on the right path and get people trust in you again.
Trust. Very good. Gemma?
I'd say stop playing games, tell the truth, and make a difference.
That's very good. Stop playing games, tell the truth, and make a difference.
Yeah.
So 3 good things in one sentence. And Emma, that means you get the final word. Or you need to unmute too. You've all been too good with the muting this time.
Now, good. Be honest, be transparent, and sort out the mess.
Honest, be transparent, and sort out the mess. That is again very good advice. Let us hope that whoever is in power on July the 5th listens to that, and if we get back together and do something similar in a year's time, we're a little more optimistic about the future. We shall see. But that has been fantastic. Thank you so much for giving up part of your evening to talk to me. I really enjoyed it, and it was great that you all had opinions and views and wanted to talk about stuff, because it makes my job so much easier. So do feel free to drop off, and happy election. Do people say that? I don't think they do say that. But anyway, try and enjoy the next week or so of it.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
It's coming home.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Take care.
Cheers.
Well, I think that is everyone has dropped out now of the discussion. I hope you found that interesting. My reflections on that group And of course, this is for us, it's I think it's focus group number 42 or 43 of the campaign or something, but some common themes. Firstly, the big issues. I mean, throughout this campaign, it has been cost of living and the NHS that people have wanted to talk about, and then some people bringing up immigration as well. I thought it was interesting. The first politician that they wanted to talk about really was Nigel Farage and Reform UK, but they, this group weren't fans, and I thought the really interesting line, because we've heard it before. You get concerns about reform and what they stand for occasionally, but a really common line that we get is that he did Brexit, then he disappeared. Which I think is quite interesting. This sense that this happened and then he wasn't there. Interesting on Sunak, I would say this group was slightly more generous on Sunak than many of the focus groups that we do. The sense that he'd inherited something impossible, and then a bit of a mix of opinion about how good he'd been in the job. They're also, I think, slightly more generous about Starmer as well. You heard that kind of, the constant critique of Sunak has been his wealth. With Starmer, it is, I don't really know what he stands for, but there was that sense he was more relatable, could link in with the working class as well. So I think for both leaders that was a better than normal group in this seat. But again, the overriding theme wasn't really about any of the policies or the party leaders. It was that sense of don't know who to trust, of apathy, of being underwhelmed by the general election campaign, which whoever wins, most likely Keir Starmer. I could say that now we don't have participants there. He's going to have to address in some way. So that was just my quick take and reflections. Oh, and also interesting, a bit of a debate on tax. That sort of, you saw the three different shades of views. One, lower tax will be better. Two, maybe it would be better to pay more for services. And three, I'd pay more if I knew it was going to improve services, but I don't think it will, and I'd need other things to come down. It's interesting. And of course, we had that brief discussion at the end about the supermajority line, which with this group just wasn't really a concern. In fact, they were sort of thought it was what was going to happen. Other groups have been more of an issue, but I think it shows it isn't a line which has broad-based appeal, particularly for people who are slightly more disengaged and just want a government that gets things done. That is all from me. Thank you so much for watching, or if you're watching afterwards, thank you for taking the time to go onto the website. For those of you who would like to look again, this will be up on our website from tomorrow at 9 a.m. and you'll be able to get it on there. Last of these will be next Wednesday. Thanks ever so much. Goodbye.